1,000 acres, a lake big enough to disappear into, a manor wrapped in silence, not scandal. This isn't a palace. It's Aston Farm, the personal sanctuary of Peter Phillips, Queen Elizabeth's first grandchild, and the royal without a title. Why did he walk away from the crown's spotlight and choose this quiet kind of power instead? Today, we step into his world, his land, his life, his legacy. At exactly 10:46 a.m. on a brisk November morning in 1977, a baby boy entered the world, his arrival marked by 41 cannon blasts from the Tower of London. Not every child gets welcomed with royal gunfire. But then again, not every child is born the first grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. His name? Peter Mark Andrew Phillips, son of Princess Anne and Captain Mark Phillips, born inside the exclusive Lindo wing at St. Mary's Hospital in London. But from the very beginning, Peter's life was already different. While the monarchy offered to grant him a title, an HRH next to his name, his parents politely declined. No duke, no lord, no prince, just Peter. That decision made him the first legitimate grandchild of a reigning monarch in over 500 years to grow up without a title. No tiaras, no palace address, just the weight of tradition, without the cushion of formality. So who does a royal become when the crown doesn't define him? Peter's path began like many royals, through tradition. He was baptized in Buckingham Palace, surrounded by names that shaped the monarchy. His godfather? Prince Charles. He spent his early years in Gloucestershire, with younger sister Zara beside him, and horses, fields, and protocol never far. But his schooling hinted at something more grounded. From Port Regis Prep in Dorset to Gordonstoun School in Scotland, a rugged place known for cold showers and discipline, Peter stood out not for his name, but his leadership. He became head boy, a role earned, not inherited. Then came a year abroad in Australia, where he worked for Sports Entertainment Limited, SEL, and even joined Formula One's Jackie Stewart racing team. Yes, from palace walls to pit lanes, Peter had always gravitated toward motion, competition, and events that brought people together. So, after studying sports science at the University of Exeter, he continued to chase impact without fanfare. His early career took him to Jaguar, where he managed corporate hospitality, and then to Williams F1 as a sponsorship account manager. In 2005, he made a strategic pivot into finance with Royal Bank of Scotland in Edinburgh. But finance wasn't the final stop. By 2012, he returned to SEL, the company that once gave him a chance as a teenager. This time, not as an intern. He was now managing director of SEL UK, designing massive public events. And in June 2016, the world saw the magnitude of his skill. To celebrate Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday, Peter orchestrated the Patrons' Lunch, a historic event with 10,000 guests, marching bands, Union Jacks lining the mall, and a royal picnic that stretched all the way to Buckingham Palace. No title needed, just vision. And perhaps that's what defines Peter best. Not what he inherited, but what he built quietly, behind the scenes. Because sometimes the most dignified kind of royalty is the kind that doesn't need a crown to command respect. And yet, even as his career grew, Peter always returned to the land, to the quiet stretch of hills and lakes that called to his sense of tradition. Let's take a walk through that landscape now, where simplicity meets majesty. Farm in Aston. What does a royal without a crown call home? Not a palace, not a penthouse, but a 1,935-acre farm tucked into the heart of the English countryside, where nature hums louder than headlines. Welcome to Aston Farm, the place where Peter Phillips lives, reflects, and roots himself in something older than monarchy, the land. From the outside, it may look like just another private estate, but take a few steps beyond the wrought iron gates, and a whole world opens up. A winding gravel road stretches beneath cathedral-like oak trees. It leads you past open meadows, whispering woodlands, and a 1,400-acre private lake, where mist rolls across the surface each morning like a silk scarf on water. And then, there it is. The house. A 7,918-square-foot stone manor designed in French countryside style, complete with 5 bedrooms, 5.5 bathrooms, and a presence that speaks more of legacy than luxury. You don't walk into Aston Farm. You arrive, through arched double doors, into a grand foyer where travertine floors meet vaulted ceilings and light pours in through windows that feel almost ecclesiastical. To the left, a formal dining room dressed in subtle royal blue and lit by a chandelier once belonging to a Windsor estate. To the right, a carved stone fireplace warms a living room filled with leather-bound books, family portraits, and a well-worn tartan blanket folded neatly over an antique armchair. But the soul of the house lies in its kitchen. An open-concept chef's kitchen with a hidden butler's pantry, a 5-seat breakfast bar, and a central island made of reclaimed oak. Here, Peter has entertained old friends, hosted family gatherings, and, according to insiders, even grilled wild venison from the estate on crisp autumn nights. Step through the French doors, and the indoors melt into the out. The stone terrace stretches the width of the house. It features an outdoor summer kitchen, a fire pit lounge, and a dining area with sweeping views of the lake, a place where twilight paints everything in gold and quiet. And it's not just a place to relax. Aston Farm is also a sportsman's haven. There's a private wine cellar, a home gym, and a game room lined with photos of past hunting trips, base weighing 12 pounds, red deer antlers mounted with quiet pride, and even a custom cabinet storing polished shotguns used for duck and pheasant shoots. Every room whispers something about Peter's philosophy, that life doesn't need to be loud to be full. That tradition can be carried, not displayed. The master suite, of course, is his retreat. Complete with a sitting area, double walk-in closets, and private access to the pool, it offers peace, not performance. And tucked beside the bed, always, is a photo of his daughters Zara and Savannah, proof that this estate, though grand, is still a home. It's easy to imagine Queen Elizabeth herself visiting Aston Farm, taking tea on the terrace as her grandson shared updates not about politics, but about pond water levels, breeding season, and which woodpeckers had returned this spring. Because that's what Aston Farm represents. Not status, but stillness. Not aristocracy, but authenticity. Estimated at nearly $10 million, the estate is a rare blend of heritage, privacy, and quiet wealth. The kind that doesn't demand attention, but earns respect. So while Peter Phillips may not hold a title, he owns something far deeper, a living legacy rooted in land, tradition, and time. But Aston Farm isn't his only sanctuary. When the country calls for stillness, Peter answers. But when the city demands elegance, he has just the place. Mansion in London. When Peter Phillips leaves the countryside behind, where does he go? Not to a media-soaked apartment in Chelsea, not to a penthouse towering over the Thames. He retreats into something far more fitting, a 6,500-square-foot estate nestled inside 44 acres of woodland, a private oasis that feels more like a cathedral in the forest than a city home. This is his London mansion, though the term mansion hardly captures its spirit. It's not just about square footage. It's about how the land listens. To find it, you don't follow the noise. You follow the silence. A half-mile private road, flanked by wild hedgerows and century-old sycamores, winds its way past 3 traditional barns and into a clearing where the house sits beside a 1-acre stocked pond, its waters rippling softly like silk under breeze. The house rises in dark blue tones, stately but unpretentious. Large glass windows let light pour into rooms where time seems to slow. From the living room, you can see the water shimmering through a full wall of windows, a wall that doesn't just frame the view, it welcomes it inside. This is not a home for cameras. It's a home for quiet rituals. Early mornings here mean coffee on the deck, where the mist still hugs the pond. Afternoons might involve a walk down one of the estate's private trails, each turn revealing a new stillness, an old fence post, a blooming hawthorn, the sudden flutter of a pheasant. Inside, the interiors lean into English country elegance. Soft leathers, thick wool throws, books that line shelves from floor to ceiling. A stone fireplace warms the den, often the place Peter uses to unwind after long days at events or travel. And unlike the sprawling grandeur of Aston Farm, this residence feels more intimate, more like a writer's retreat than a royal's command post. The barns, though rustic in appearance, have been updated into fully functional spaces. One serves as a studio where Peter reportedly keeps historical documents, old photographs, and the tools he uses for managing both estates. Another is a storage haven for family heirlooms, furniture passed down from Princess Anne, antique saddles, and even an old rugby ball from his Gordonstown days. But perhaps the most impressive part of the property is how invisible it is. Despite its size, location, and value, estimated at $2 million, it remains shielded from public view. No drones, no tabloids, no intrusion, just a man, a home, and a woodland that keeps its secrets. What makes this estate even more intriguing is how perfectly it contrasts yet complements Aston Farm. Where the farm is legacy, this is reflection. Where the countryside speaks to his family's royal blood, this city sanctuary speaks to his personal need for privacy, solitude, and self-direction. There are no gold gates, no crests, no royal guards. But every element, every brick, whispers that this is a home built by a man who values peace over prestige. And perhaps that's why Peter Phillips has chosen this life. Not to disappear, but to live deeply, to walk through a forest trail without fanfare, to sit beside a pond and hear nothing but the wind. But behind all this calm, one question still lingers. How does a man with no royal salary afford such refined solitude? $20 million. That's the estimated net worth of Peter Phillips. Surprised? You're not alone. Because unlike many members of the royal family, Peter receives no official salary, no royal stipend, and holds no aristocratic title to monetize. So, where does the wealth come from? The answer lies in something uniquely Peter. A quiet empire built not from inheritance, but from initiative. After graduating with a sports science degree from the University of Exeter, Peter never waited for opportunity to knock. He opened the door himself. His early professional years were spent at Jaguar, managing corporate hospitality. But it was his shift to Williams Formula One, handling sponsorship deals, that revealed something essential about him. Peter was not just royal by birth. He had a natural grasp of brand value and public engagement. Later, as an executive at Royal Bank of Scotland, he honed his business sense, managing major accounts and corporate events. But his true career leap came in 2012, when he returned to SELUK, this time as its managing director. Under his leadership, the company produced high-caliber events, including the landmark Patrons' Lunch for Queen Elizabeth II's 90th birthday. That single event was watched by millions and attended by thousands, raising Peter's visibility not just as a royal figure but as a capable and bankable event mastermind. And then came the moment that stirred headlines and bank accounts. In 2020, Peter appeared in a Chinese commercial for Bright Food, promoting organic milk. The ad was polished, elegant, and clearly framed him as British royalty, despite the monarchy having no official involvement. It sparked some debate in the UK press, but it also reinforced one thing: Peter understands how to use heritage without abusing it. That commercial, along with other discrete brand partnerships and consulting roles, added significant value to his growing wealth. But more than endorsements or salaries, Peter's real fortune is anchored in land. Aston Farm, worth nearly $10 million, with its lake, game preserve, and French-style manor. The London estate, valued around $2 million, hidden in 44 acres of private woodland. These are not assets to be flaunted. They are long-term, appreciating properties, a reflection of Peter's measured, strategic approach to wealth. No flashy sports cars, no nightclub ventures, just stone, soil, and silence, quietly turning value into legacy. Because Peter Phillips doesn't seek wealth for display. He builds it for freedom. To live the life he wants, unbothered, unburdened, and undeniably royal in his own way. But what does a man of quiet fortune give back to the world? Let's step into the next chapter of his life, where privilege meets purpose. Philanthropy. It was a summer afternoon in Windsor. Under a sapphire sky, the field was set. Players mounted their horses. Spectators sipped Pimm's from silver tumblers. At the center of it all, standing quietly along the sidelines, Peter Phillips. He wasn't there to score goals. He wasn't even on the roster. But his presence meant something. Because this wasn't just a polo match. It was the 2025 Royal Charity Polo Cup, hosted by Prince William, an annual event that raised a staggering £1.1 million for 10 charities that year. And Peter? He stood beside his cousin not as a royal accessory, but as a pillar of support. That's Peter's approach to philanthropy. He doesn't lead with headlines. He leads by showing up again and again where it matters. Over the years, Peter has quietly taken on roles that allow him to lift others without stepping into the spotlight. He serves as joint royal patron of Habitat for Humanity, Peterborough and Kawartha region in Canada, a non-profit that builds homes for families who might otherwise never own one. There's something poetic about that. A man known for owning grand estates helping others find a simple roof over their heads. Alongside his former wife, Autumn Kelly, Peter also supported the West Island Palliative Care Residents, another Canadian organization providing end-of-life care. A cause that speaks to dignity, compassion, and presence. Values Peter has long embodied. And while he hasn't created his own charitable foundation or headed splashy campaigns, his influence is nonetheless essential. He often attends royal-sponsored fundraising events, bringing with him the power of symbolism. Because in the world of philanthropy, attention matters. And when Peter Phillips enters a room, or a polo field, it attracts media, donors, and the subtle gravitational pull of the Windsor name. Even without a title, he carries the weight of legacy. And perhaps what's most impactful is how his charity work reflects his own nature. Measured, thoughtful, never self-serving. He doesn't turn cameras toward himself. He turns them toward causes. And that choice says everything. Because giving is not always about how much. Sometimes, it's about how you choose to show up, in person, in silence, in service. And beyond all the estates, events, and philanthropy, who stands beside Peter in his most private moments? Who shares his quiet mornings and family rituals? Personal life. In June 2024, a quiet introduction took place behind palace walls. No cameras, no official statement, just a warm gathering. That day, Peter Phillips brought someone special to meet King Charles III and Queen Camilla, a woman who wasn't from the aristocracy, who didn't hold a title, but who would soon hold his heart. Her name? Harriet Sperling, a pediatric nurse for the NHS, a single mother, and a writer, with ink-stained notebooks and a gentle resolve that seemed to match Peter's quiet soul. Their engagement was announced publicly on August 1st, 2025, but those close to them say the bond had been blooming long before. Harriet isn't just his fiancée. She's his mirror, his calm. And together, they've crafted a life not of palaces or protocol, but of routine, rhythm, and roots. At Aston Farm, mornings begin not with press briefings or bodyguards, but with the smell of coffee from the country kitchen. Peter walks the property most days, sometimes alone, sometimes with Harriet, sometimes with her daughter. They stop by the lake, watch the water birds scatter, talk about nothing in particular. In the afternoons, you might find him fixing something in one of the barns, or teaching the girls how to cast a fishing line, or walking the wooded paths Zara once rode horses on as a child. Peter has 2 daughters of his own from his previous marriage to Autumn Kelly, Savannah and Isla. Though the marriage ended, the bond with his children has only deepened. They visit Aston Farm often. They know the lake. They know the laughter around the outdoor fireplace. They know their father not as a royal, but as a man who shows up for every birthday, every school event, every quiet evening around the table. And that's the core of Peter's world. A blended family built on respect, a relationship grounded in real life, a home filled with small joys, the clink of forks, the splash of pond water, the sound of stories being read at bedtime. Even in London, the same rhythm continues. Peter and Harriet walk through the woodland trails on weekends, sometimes with dogs, sometimes with silence. No paparazzi, no pageantry, just the sound of wind in the trees. And somehow that peaceful domesticity, those quiet hours with the people he loves, carry more depth than any throne ever could. Because for Peter Phillips, legacy isn't about lineage. It's about presence, about showing up again and again for the people who make life whole. He's lived a life both inside and outside the walls of royalty. So how do we define a man like Peter Phillips? Is he royal, or is he something rarer? Noble in spirit without needing a title? No palace, no crown. And yet, Peter Phillips has built a life that feels more royal than most. Not because of diamonds or diplomacy, but because of something far more enduring. A deep devotion to legacy, land, and love. Aston Farm isn't just a countryside estate. It's a symbol of a man who chose stillness over spectacle, substance over status. Where others chased ceremony, he chose simplicity. Where others clung to titles, he cultivated trees. And in doing so, he reminded us that greatness isn't always loud, that nobility doesn't always need a name. Peter Phillips has walked both worlds, the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace and the gravel roads of Aston. He's held hands with monarchs and with school-age daughters. He's stood beside thrones and beside fire pits. And in every space, he has stood with quiet dignity. So perhaps, in the end, this is the real royal journey. Not the one crowned in gold, but the one grounded in earth, family, tradition, and the courage to live life on your own terms. Because when you strip away the protocols and pomp, you find a man who is never trying to be anything, but real. And maybe, just maybe, that's what royalty looks like in the modern world. What do you think? Is Peter Phillips living the ultimate royal life, one of privacy, land, and quiet strength? Or does his story show that legacy can thrive even without a crown? Let us know in the comments below. And if you love discovering the hidden worlds of royal estates and extraordinary lives lived off the radar, like this video, subscribe and join us for more cinematic journeys into the homes and hearts of remarkable people. We'll see you in the next story.